Good morning and welcome to today's Torah study. We're doing a blitz on Passover. We're going to do a Pesach crash course because remember, on Pesach, we're not allowed to own or eat or consume or see any leavened bread products, which include wheat, barley, spelt, oats, and rye, the 5 grains, wheat, barley, spelt, oats, and rye, that have come in contact with water for more than 18 minutes, which is why the closest thing to chametz is matzah. Matzah is the closest thing to chametz because when you make matzah, you take the wheat, barley, spelt, oats, or rye, and you mix them with water, and you make sure that it comes out of the oven before 18 minutes, because after 18 minutes, bam, it's already fermented, which is, by the way, the reason why you'll notice that there's something called gebrux. What's gebrux? Gebrux means wet matzah. Matzah balls, for example, and according to the Chabad custom, is unacceptable on Pesach. Whoa, you just learned something.
I'm leaving now.
A matzah ball is not kosher. No, sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm leaving.
Oh, except for the last day. Yeah, he's right. So the matzah ball, what's a matzah ball? It's taking a matzah and mixing it with water. The Chabad custom is to be extremely meticulous with the matzah, to only eat it dry and not to mix it with any liquid or any substance other than the matzah itself, because of an added stringency. Pesach is OCD. Pesach is when Jews celebrate the OCD. We're very, very careful with everything. We're meticulous, right? In other words, even all year round, when you're not very meticulous with all the mitzvahs, on Pesach, it's a good thing to be careful with the mitzvahs, right? Why are we careful about this? Because if there was any leftover flour, Marty, if there was any leftover flour.
At the kosher supermarket, they sell matzah balls for Pesach.
Yes, and they sell matzah balls for Pesach. Now, you can actually find the Pesach program, Marty. You can find the Pesach program that is gebrux, and you find a Pesach program like a hotel situation, which is non-gebrux. It depends on what kind of Jew are you. How Jew do you? How Jew you do? How Jew you do, right? So it depends. What does it mean, gebrux? Gebrux is a sensitivity. It's like, guys, think about it like a peanut butter allergy. Some people are able to eat peanut butter, and some people can't even have a leftover of something that once was near a peanut butter, right? The question is how meticulous you are about the mitzvah, right? What's the concern? The concern is that when you made the matzah, if there was a little bit of extra flour, maybe too much flour in the dough, and the flour was remaining on the top of the dough, and it came out of the oven with some unmixed flour, and now the matzah's got flour on top of it, and if you mix that matzah with the water or with some other liquid substance, then it will ferment after 18 minutes. Look, it's very unlikely. It's very extra stringent. But you know what? On Pesach, we go over the top. We pass over. We go over the top, and it's okay to do that. Each person according to his stringency, each person according to his level. But now we're going through a little crash course. A quick shout out to our listeners from Dnipropetrovsk in Ukraine, to the family, the Futafas family. We love you, and we think of you, and thank you for being part of us here. Who? What'd you say? Savvy Ukraina, yeah. Say it again? Okay, fine, let's go. So what about medicines? What about cosmetics on Pesach? Are you allowed to use medicines and cosmetics on Pesach? What's your question? No, what's your question?
Oh, gebrux. Can you eat it after the first 2 days?
No. If you keep gebrux, if you're meticulous with gebrux, and you don't eat it until the 8th day of Pesach. The 8th day of Pesach, that's a whole different farbrengen as to why it is that we eat it on the 8th day of Pesach. We're not going to get into that one. It's gonna be a little more than we can handle right now. But let's talk about Philip Moss. So in other words, if you're not a Chabadnik, you're not sensitive enough, guys. This is. Do I detect a note of trauma here? Philip, be careful. Nobody's accusing you. Nobody's saying that they're better than anybody else. There's no condescension over here. You know what? Just because one guy does his thing, it doesn't mean that you're less than. Let the Chabadniks do their way. So in other words, does it bother you that the Sephardic eat rice on Pesach? Does that mean that you're evil or that you're bad because you don't eat rice, or you're good? Because nothing, guys. Relax. Take it easy. Deep breath work here, right? Okay? Everybody should do their own little thing. We're all part of the same nation. We serving God. Now, we serving God in different units. What does that mean, different units? So you have the infantry, and then you have the tank guys, and then you got the guys in intelligence, and then you got the guys in the Navy, then you got the guys in the air, in the Air Force, right? Now, not everybody's got the same weapons. The guys in intelligence don't need to carry a rifle like the infantry. And the guys in the tank units need to carry a tank while the helicopter unit needs a helicopter, not a tank. You give the helicopter guys a tank, it'll be a problem, right? And you give the intelligence guys a ship, they won't even know what to do with it. Each one's going to stay in their lane, right? So the Chabadniks, they do their Gebruks business, and the Sephardic, they do their rice business, and there's other observances and customs. You know what? Some people don't eat garlic on Pesach. It's a Chabad custom, by the way, not to eat garlic on Pesach. You know that? Why don't you eat garlic on Pesach? Is garlic like chametz? No. The reason is because the garlic is to be processed in factories or in fields that were near the chametz. So that's why people don't eat garlic today. Does that mean that you're evil if you eat garlic? It doesn't mean you're evil if you eat garlic. It's fine. If you don't eat garlic, go eat garlic. You go by your family custom. Let's talk about this, guys. Purell. Do you know that the owner of Purell is a member of our community?
Yeah.
The owner of Purell, his grandkids were here in shul this morning. Yep, that's right. The owner of Purell is a member of our congregation. Purell and hand soap in America are not made from chametz alcohol. They're made from kitnios and are therefore permissible to use. What's kitnios? Kitnios means legumes. Kitnios means that there are any types of seed that when planted produce seeds like rice, beans, peas, corn, legumes, peanuts, right? So kitnios are 100% permissible. Ooh, Rochelle from Dubai, nice. They're 100% kosher for Pesach. However, the rabbis made an extra stringency. What does that mean? The rabbis made an extra stringency. It means, kitnios means that the rabbis said, look, anything which can be ground into a flour and can be mixed with water and can look like chametz is also prohibited as an extra stringency, right? That's called kitnios. And that's why not only are we careful to avoid the 5 grains when mixed with water, we're even careful to avoid anything which can be ground into flour that can be mixed with water, which is basically legumes like rice, right? And that's the reason why kitnios is prohibited on Pesach, not by biblical decree, but rather by rabbinical decree. Now, how important is a rabbinical decree? Is it something you can backhandedly dismiss and say, it's just the rabbis? No, you can't do that. Because the Torah itself testifies and says that you must follow the rabbis of your time, whatever they tell you right or left, and which means the biblical decree tells us, gives a mandate to the rabbis to be able to enforce such decrees. And therefore, when the rabbis make a decree like that, it's binding. For example, when the rabbis prohibited the same exact thing when it came to meat and milk, and they extended the prohibition of meat and milk, of beef and milk, to chicken and milk. That was a rabbinic prohibition. The addition of chicken and milk, that doesn't mean that you can just backhandedly dismiss and therefore have your chicken parmesan sandwich. It doesn't mean that. What it means is that if the rabbis prohibited it, then it's got the backing of God Almighty, and that's the reason why we avoid kitnios on Pesach. By the way, tomatoes and cucumbers are not kitnios, thank God. Potatoes should be kitnios, but they're not. They're not. Because if potatoes were kitnios, we'd have nothing else to eat on Pesach.
You can grind that up into a
That's right. But the reason why potatoes are not kitnios, Marty, is because we don't want to ask the question. The fact that the rabbis did not include the potatoes in the kitnios ban is good. Let sleeping dogs lie. Don't go there. They didn't include it, so just don't go there. It's fine. Just let sleeping dogs lie. It's enough what the Torah already prohibited you from. Don't look for further stringencies, right? Ashkenazim do not eat kitnios, but you don't need to sell them as part of chametz. The Sephardic Jews do not accept this prohibition. It was Ashkenazi rabbis that did it. Coffee beans, thank God, are not included, right? Quinoa should be avoided. What about if a baby depends on formula which is made out of kitnios, right? And you'll notice on the packaging from Israel, on the baby formula, it says this baby food is kosher for Pesach, but it contains kitnios. So now Ashkenazi babies, do we give Ashkenazi babies baby formula which has kitnios, right? You may feed it to him, but make sure it doesn't have any actual chametz, right? So for example, if it's rice milk, it could contain chametz ingredients. You want to make sure that it's kosher for Passover, just that it contains kitnios. You also want to make sure if you give it to Ashkenazi baby, you want to make sure that you give them a specific bottle for their formula and not to wash it with the regular Pesach sink, so that the washing dishes doesn't mix with the kitnios bottle and the other bottles, right? Okay, so there's different customs, different communities. For example, radish, for example, garlic, and it depends on your community, depends on your family. If your grandmother did it one way, then stick to your family's tradition. For 8 days, you'll survive, right? By the way, remember Coca-Cola does change their bottle tops for Pesach. They change them from the red bottle top to the yellow bottle tops. Go to the store, you'll see the yellow Coca-Cola bottle tops. And the reason for that is they make the kosher for Pesach batch. Not that there's any chametz inside of Coca-Cola. There isn't. The problem is that they use high fructose corn syrup, and the corn syrup is corn, which is kitnios. So in order to cater to the Ashkenazi Jews who won't eat corn, they should replace the corn syrup with sucrose,
Healthier.
which is apparently healthier. So, pick your poison, but apparently they switch it. It's not kitnios because sugar is not kitnios. And that's the reason why the yellow bottle tops are actually kosher for Pesach, even for Ashkenazim. Now, back to the medicines. What? Philip, I'm happy that you're cool. I'm cool if you're cool. That's good. Great. Okay, so far so good, guys. Let's do this. So, ointments that are medically necessary but contain chametz ingredients may be used on Pesach because there's a concept called einoi ra'ui la'achilas kelef. If the chametz is in such a form that it's not edible even to a dog, right? A dog, you never find a dog like licking up formula, skin creams, right? Because it's just no longer edible. So once it reaches a state where it's no longer edible, then it's actually okay to use those ointments if they're medically necessary. Now you want to avoid any chametz that you don't need, but if it is medically necessary, and even if it's got chametz, it's okay. But ointments made on Pesach itself from chametz is not permissible. Why? Because the chametz that was used. Let's say you made the ointment. Let's say you bought it from someone, from a Jew that's making the ointments, but he doesn't keep Pesach. Then the chametz ingredient that he made was not allowed to be used. You're not allowed to benefit from it, and therefore you can't use those ointments. Ointments that are solely alcohol may not be used. What is that? Is there such a thing as ointments made out of pure alcohol? I'm assuming that there is, and those are not okay. All medicines may be ingested if one's life is in danger. That's a very important point. So you're allowed to ingest any medicines if your life is in danger. So speak to your doctor if you've got... No, I'm serious. Speak to your doctor. Ask your doctor if this is medically necessary or what would happen if you took a break for 8 days. For a regular illness, it's definitely proper to avoid anything with chametz ingredients or to remove the chametz capsule before taking the pill. The capsules are made out of...
Gel.
Right, so you want to take it out of there. But if you must, then you can take any tasteless pills even if it's not kosher for Pesach. Remember, because a dog wouldn't be caught eating pills, right? If you do need to take such a pill on Pesach, then the best thing to do is to wrap it up in a tissue or a piece of lettuce and swallow it like that, because then it's not even touching your throat. That's the best way to do it. Medicines which have kitnios, so medicines we said that have chametz and are necessary for you to keep you alive, you're allowed to have. But if it's medicines with kitnios ingredients, not a problem, even for Ashkenazim. What about stuff like mouthwash, toothpaste? So you could you survive 8 days without toothpaste? I don't know. That's your wife. I don't know. She might not survive, right? Okay. Right. So what about stuff that's not life-threatening, but it's obviously hygiene, and it's mouthwash, it's toothpaste, right? You can buy these things that are kosher for Pesach. You can actually buy them kosher for Pesach, but you can't get kosher for Pesach. Then any toothpaste may be used because you don't swallow the toothpaste, and also because you won't be eaten by a dog, right? You don't find dogs lapping up toothpaste or do they? Or mouthwash? I don't think so.
Mouthwash is made with alcohol.
Is it really?
Absolutely.
Not all.
Listerine is 100%
Yeah,
alcohol.
Listerine is.
No, but the
not-
kosher for Pesach mouthwash.
Well, it says the Listerine is alcohol?
Yeah.
Really?
So now you're going to be drinking Listerine?
Yeah, right.
So you definitely want to be avoiding it. If it's made out of pure alcohol, you definitely want to be avoiding it. Buy the kosher for Pesach bread. Fantastic. All right, good. So now let's keep on going. What about braces and retainers? If you have a brace, right? If you have a brace, then does that mean that your braces are now milchik or fleshik? The first time you eat hot food, then the braces become milchik or fleshik, and then you can't eat the other one ever again until you get the braces removed. What about false teeth? Right? So if you have braces or retainers or fillings or false teeth, you should clean them well 24 hours before the last time of eating chametz, and then refrain from eating hot or sharp chametz thereafter, at least to make sure that when you go into Pesach, they're nice and clean, right? At the time of the prohibition of Pesach, which this year is going to be Shabbos at about 12:15 p.m., rinse your mouth with hot water, as hot as you possibly can. Basically, as hot as you would with hot coffee, basically. For teeth retainers, you should also try to pour water on them, not boiling water, as that might ruin them. Okay? Okay. Let's talk about selling of chametz. Let's talk about the selling of the chametz. Don't wait until the last minute before you sell your chametz. Guys, we need you to sell your chametz early. You got to sell your chametz. Go to jewishgardens.com/set-me-free. I believe that is the website. jewishgardens.com/set-me-free. And sell your chametz. Doesn't matter if you're in Dubai or if you're in Greenland. Doesn't matter where you are. Sell your chametz, folks. jewishgardens.com/set-me-free, because you're not allowed to own the chametz. You sell it to me, and I will then sell it to a Gentile before Pesach. Usually, when you sell the chametz, you want to make sure the areas in your house that was sold to the Gentiles should be clearly marked. The sale is real. You shouldn't enter that room during Pesach unless it's absolutely necessary. The sale is real, so you can't sell crumbs or chametz like in your car and say, I'm not going to clean my car. I'm just going to sell the crumbs in my car. You can't do that. You could sell the entire car, though. If no one will be in your home or car for the entire Pesach, then you may sell, like let's say going away for Pesach, you may sell the entire house or the car. You should also do this. You should only do this if you have no intention of being at home during the entire Pesach. But if you need to be in the house, do not sell the areas that you need access to, or don't sell the car that you need access to, right? Okay, let's go a little further about the Shabbos. This Shabbos, the Shabbos of Erev Pesach. The Shabbos is called Shabbos HaGadol, when the rabbi is supposed to give a big speech about Pesach.
Phone it in.
Okay, Thursday. Thursday is a fast day when firstborn males usually fast on Erev Pesach. Since Erev Pesach is Shabbos, and we don't want to schedule a fast on Shabbos or Erev Shabbos, therefore this year the fast of the firstborns is on Thursday, because Erev Pesach is the day when the firstborns were spared, when God passed over the homes of the Jewish firstborns and he killed only the Egyptian firstborns. In order to avoid the need to fast, we have a special loophole, and that is by doing a siyum. Toby this year will be doing a siyum in our shul. The siyum is a conclusion of a tractate of Talmud. Prepare that beforehand. Okay, those who make a siyum are able to avoid the fast, and any firstborns who participate may eat from that meal to the rest of for the rest of the day. You can make a siyum on a tractate of Babylonian Talmud, a tractate of Jerusalem Talmud, or on a full Seder of Mishnayos. When it comes to a Mishnah, you shouldn't do a siyum on just one tractate of a Mishnah. If you have no choice, then you can. If you heard a siyum over the phone or Zoom, it doesn't really count. What happens if a firstborn forgot to fast or to hear a siyum? Then he should fast on Friday, ex post facto. All firstborns need to fast, even if he's a firstborn to his mother or if he's a firstborn to his father. If your child is a firstborn and you're not, then it's customary for the father to fast on behalf of his firstborn when the son is still under bar mitzvah and unable to fast for himself. If the father is the firstborn himself and he must fast, it's customary to bring the mother some food from the siyum. But there's no need to be stringent if the mother did not participate. Okay. All right, let's go a little further. Let's talk about the checking of the chametz. You know what? I think we've spoken about the checking of the chametz. I'm going to skip that over. Let me see what else. We spoke about the 10 pieces that you're supposed to hide before you check the chametz. Right? You're supposed to check your workplace. Okay. Burning of the chametz, we said you're supposed to burn on this year on Friday. You should burn it by the time when the chametz will be prohibited on Shabbos, which is by 12:15 p.m., which is why we're doing it over here in our show. About 11:45, we're going to be burning the chametz here on Friday, but you technically could burn it the whole Friday. Okay. Now, let's talk about the Seder night. This is very important. Let's go a little bit into the Seder night. The Seder should begin at night. It cannot begin before nighttime. So this year, the night times doesn't begin until, let me tell you what time. Okay, so the nighttime this year doesn't begin until about 8:10 p.m., which means if you call your Seder for 4 p.m., what does that mean? You didn't do it on the right day. It's like, imagine you have a flight and your flight departs at 7:59 p.m., right? And you decided that you want to board the flight at 6:59 p.m. The problem is the plane's not there and the jet bridge is just, you're going to walk down the jet bridge. You say, I don't care if the plane's here or not. I'm boarding. So what's going to happen? You're going to break a leg. You're going to kill yourself or something. Walk off the jet bridge and into thin air. You're going to probably die, right? So you can't board the plane before the plane is ready for embarking, right? For loading, right? So therefore, you want to make sure that you start your Seder after nightfall. Now, what happens if your wife or your guest already called the Seder for earlier? Here's what you do. You eat the meal first. Eat the meal. Knock yourself out. Eat the whole meal first. And then, let's say you called it for 7 o'clock, right? So you eat the meal 7 to 8:15. At 8:15, now you start Kiddush. You wash the hands. You do the karpas, the vegetable in the salt water. You break the matzah. You say the manishtana. You do the 4 questions, right? You do the Haggadah, right? You do the matzah. You do the mar. Any of that stuff, any of the 15 steps of the Seder that you do before nightfall doesn't count, folks. It just doesn't count, right? And that's why you want to make sure that you start the Seder as early as possible in order to keep the children awake. The most important people at the Seder are the children, by the way, because this is the night of Jewish education. It's the night of transmission of tradition, of Dor Vador. So you want to make sure that you engage the children. I want to encourage you folks to do the following. Come up with stimulating questions for the kids. If your kids are teenagers, if they're young adults, if they're young Jewish professionals, if they're in their 20s, if they're in their 30s, why don't you ask them a question that will keep them on their toes? Imagine you ask them a question. You said, imagine you have your LGBTQ granddaughter, right, at the Seder. Right? Let's say, listen, no insulting anybody, but let's say you have a very, very liberal granddaughter at the Seder, grandson, right? And you say to them, so what does being Jewish mean to you? You can ask them a question like this. So what is your red lines? What is your red lines? I was talking to somebody this weekend who told me that all people are good. Even Hamas terrorists are good. They think they're doing the right thing, right? And by asking him this question about what would be considered a red line, I got this guy thinking to the point that he was like really stuck. He got really stuck because he couldn't understand. So what are your red lines? And he started inventing different red lines. Well, you got to be nice. You got to be friendly. You got to be this. You got to be that. And you actually force them into a conversation where they have to evaluate what their values are. You can ask them a question like this. What are your values?
So we have a part that says, how do you connect that part with that?
It says in the Haggadah, we speak about the wicked son. We say, if he was there in Egypt, he would not have been redeemed. Very good. If he was there in Egypt, he would not have been redeemed. But here, he will be redeemed. From this exile, he will be redeemed. Because there in Egypt, 80% of the Jews got stuck in Egypt, and they died in the plague of darkness. They didn't come out. Only 20% of the Jews actually emerged from Egypt. But from this exile of Mashiach, every single Jew is going to be redeemed. We're not going to leave a single man behind. And that's why it's important. And that's why it's important for us. That's what it says in the Mishnah. Yeah. I think we're that generation, by the way. They're not coming back, but they're reincarnated as us. So the generation that died in the desert says they don't have a portion of the world to come. But we are the reincarnation.
20%.
Yeah. The generation of Moses, that one that died. So we supposedly we are that reincarnation, and we'll come into the days of Mashiach. So what I wanted to say was, folks, is that ask good questions, and you're going to prepare this. You can't expect the Seder to be meaningful unless you prepare it to be meaningful. So ask provocative questions. Ask them and say, kids, okay, so what's wrong with marching with Hamas? There's good people on both sides, right? Right? Or not? And see what their values are. Because in many cases, many people don't know what their values are.
But then you have to answer.
Yeah, you better have an answer. Think about it. And maybe you got to force yourself into coming to some sort of a clarity as well.
There's a Chabad Haggadah on it. I've had it for years. And the Rebbe, there's things in there where it makes you have discussions about things.
Yeah, the different Haggadahs. You can buy a good Haggadah. Toby's saying that there's some sort of a Chabad Haggadah that makes you thought-provoking questions. If you could share it, let us know. I don't know. I'm not familiar. Okay, remember, you want to light candles on Saturday night at the Seder. You cannot light candles on Shabbos. It's got to be after the time of nightfall. So look on the local Jewish calendar, wherever you are in the world, and make sure you're lighting your Pesach candles after nightfall, because you can't light it on Shabbos. We say two blessings, Lahad Vigler Shel Yom Tov and Shechianu. The women should light candles large enough that will last until after the Seder. The women who said Shechianu on candle lighting do not say the Shechianu blessing again during Kiddush. Okay.
When do you do
Havdalah.
yeah, when do you do
Havdalah is going to be part of the Kiddush. It's called Yak Nahaz. When a Yom Tov comes out on a Saturday night, you have a hybrid Kiddush, which includes both Kiddush as well as Havdalah for the end of Pesach. At the Seder, you're not supposed to eat any roast meat, like roast chicken or roast meat, because it resembles the Paschal sacrifice. And meat that was cooked in its own juices, like a pot without water or other liquid, and it stews in its own fluid, is not considered roasted meat. There's a name for it. I think it's called a pot roast or something. There's a name for that. I think it might be called a pot roast. Nevertheless, it is prohibited because technically it's not considered roasted, but practically it is prohibited because of Marisayan, because of the perception that it might look like it is roasted. That's why you want to avoid a pot roast on Pesach night.
Just fish?
No, you can have cooked.
chicken?
Cooked.
Chicken.
You can have-
So it's not roasted.
Yeah, roasted. It
Yeah,
shouldn't be
like
roasted
roast
without.
beef.
Yeah, like a
Like
rotisserie,
roast
for
beef.
example. A rotisserie is a problem, right? Because there's no juices. Even meat that is first cooked in water and then roasted is prohibited for the same reason, because it is the wrong perception. Okay, we set up the Seder plate before the Seder. Those who wear a kittel put it on before wearing the Seder plate. Anybody here before putting on the Seder plate? Anybody here wear a kittel Seder? We don't do that. Okay, we put on 3 matzahs and you put a cloth between each one of them. On top of the matzahs, you put the 3 matzahs with a cloth in between, and then on top you put the Seder plate. The Seder plate includes 2 cooked foods. One inch is the egg symbolizing the Korban Chagiga, which was the festival offering, and the neck bone symbolizing the Korban Pesach, right? The Paschal lamb. And then you have 4 other signs. 2 of them are identical. They are the mur and the charos, the mur and the chazeres, which is the horseradish and the romaine lettuce, right? Salt water is not part of the Seder plate. It's the vegetable that you dip in the salt water and the charoses, right? The order of the arrangement varies by custom. The Arizal made it like 2 segels. A segel is an S sound. The 3 dots of the vowel. When you have 1, 2, 3, right? That symbol is how the Arizal would set up the Seder plate. You put the egg on the top right, the neck bone on the top left, and the maror in the middle below them. Then you would put the karpas, the vegetable for the salt water, in the top right, the charoses in the bottom left, and the chazeres, which is the second maror, in the bottom middle. Make sure you check your matzahs that there's no halachic issues. You want to make sure your matzahs are not chipped. And also the matzah shouldn't be burned a priori, because that might be considered broken. And if you only have broken matzahs, then it's okay, as long as you try to complete them as a puzzle. Try to put them together like pieces of a puzzle. Fine. When it comes to Kiddush, Steve, to answer your question, we start off the Kiddush with Havdalah together in a form called Yak Nahaz. It's printed in the Seder. You'll look in the Haggadah, and it says for Saturday night, you add the following pieces. Yak Nahaz is an acronym for Yain Kiddush Ner Havdalah Zman, which is the sequence of the Kiddush for a Saturday night. We start with the blessing on the wine, then sanctifying the day, then candle, then Havdalah separating Shabbos and Yantiv, and then the Shechianu blessing. We don't make a blessing on the spices, and we don't look at the fingernails by the candle like you would on a regular Saturday night. We only gaze at the Yom Tov candle, but we don't bring them together. Even when Erev Pesach is not on Shabbos, you can only make Kiddush and the Seder after nightfall. Why? Because the Korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb, can only be eaten at night, as well as the matzah and the myrrh, as well as the 4 cups. So if you had your first cup, which is the Kiddush, at the very beginning of the Seder, if you had it at 4 p.m. or 6 p.m. or even at 8 p.m., it's before nightfall, and therefore it doesn't count. You haven't had your 4 cups, you got to have your 4 cups after. Now, why does it matter? Does God really care if you're eating your wine, you're drinking your 4 cups after 8:17 or before 8:17? The answer is yes. Right? The answer is yes, because it's like an email address. If you send an email address to to Rabbi Vigler or Rabbi Vigler, it's going to make a big difference. One will arrive and one won't arrive, right? It's a precise equation, and that's how it works, right? You want to push yourself to drink the 4 cups of wine. You actually have to drink them. You can't just smell them. You can't sniff them. You can't look at them. You can't taste them. You can't sip them. You actually have to drink them, the whole thing, right? A minimum of 51% of the cup. In extenuating circumstances, you can have grape juice. If you have alcoholic, check with your rabbi. Women have the same obligation of 4 cups and matzah and maror, just like the men. You have to use a cup. You can't. What size cup is a cup? You have to use a cup that has a minimum of a revis, which is 4 ounces, or according to Rabbi, it's 2.9 ounces. Kiddush year-round, drinking a majority of the cup is sufficient, but for the 4 cups, it is proper to drink the whole cup. It's only ex post facto that if you drank 51%, then you're okay. Okay? Rather that it's better to use a smaller cup that holds the 2.9 ounces minimum and finish it is better than to use a larger cup and to drink only a majority. Some people have the custom that someone else pours the wine for them at the Seder. Do you know why that is? Because at the Seder, we're like royalty, and kings don't pour for themselves. You want somebody else to pour for you. If you forgot to say Shechianu the first night, you can be said whenever you remember. And the second night's blessing could also exempt the first night. Reclining to the left is a requirement for men. You familiar with this, Chuck? You're supposed to recline at the Seder? Like a chaise.
We lean left.
You're supposed to recline. When do you recline at the Seder? 4 parts of the Seder. You're supposed to recline when drinking the 4 cups, and when eating the matzah, and when eating the great sandwich, the pillow, that amazing sandwich, which is matzah and horseradish and charosas, right? And also during the afikom. And those are the 4 top parts of the Seder you're supposed to recline. Women do not need to recline. After washing your hands the first time, which is the urchat, before the wet vegetable, you shouldn't speak until after eating the vegetable, which is dipped in the salt water. Bitter herbs could be radish and lettuce.
Use romaine lettuce.
Romaine lettuce, even if it's sweet, since part of the bitterness was the Egyptians' initial kindness, which later evolved into bitterness. So even if your bitter herbs have partial sweetness, it's okay, because the Egyptians persecuted the Jews by first starting off with kindness, right? That's how they got them into the slavery. When you say the blessing of Asher Ge'alanu, which is at the end of the Magid of the Haggadah, we reverse the order on a Saturday night. You say first the Pesachim and then the Zvachim. First the Paschal lamb, then the offerings. When the door is open for Elijah, it is a very opportune time to pray for your needs. At that time, you say that God does whatever we do. And when God asks us to open the door, it means that He also opens His door. So that's the time when you open the door for Elijah. You should ask for anything that you need. And that's a wrap for today's crash course. Hopefully we'll finish it tomorrow.